So, hello viewers, welcome to Let's Talk About. Let's Talk About is the real understanding of social issues that bothers us as Christians. Today's topic is going to be on communication, connection, and emotional health. And my guest today is Dr. Lily Pobi. Um, to have this discussion, Dr. Lipobi is going to help us understand what communication is all about, how it affects our everyday lives, and then how best we can maneuver around that. I'm going to be your host, Dr. Annie Owusua Inkulenu. Let me remind you, viewers, that we are live on social media platforms. The YouTube page, Trinity United Church Legon. You can send your questions and comments on our social media platforms, and our WhatsApp number is 050-157-9996. I repeat, 050-157-9996. Okay, so, Doc, good evening.
Good
and
evening.
welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good to be back here.
It's been a while.
Yes.
Well, so today we are talking about communication. And we know that every aspect of our lives, communication is key. But, we talk is communication all about talking?
No, certainly not. Communication is more than can actually. A large part of what we do when we are communicating is not verbal. You communicate before you even open your mouth. And some of the ways that happens is in the ways in which our body language, the way we posture ourselves or position ourselves, the way we engage, things like eye contact, a smile on your face or the frown on your face sometimes, whether or not you are even paying attention to the person. Sometimes we are talking to people and they are looking at their phones or they are looking at other things that are going on and so on. And all of that communicates something to the person. So a big part of communication is not only what we say, it's non-verbal. Although what we say and how we say it also makes a difference in how we communicate. So it's both verbal and non-verbal. I think it's not just the talking. You can communicate a lot, say a lot to someone without opening your mouth.
So if I hear from what you're saying, we are talking, whether verbal or non-verbal. But as to whether the person is even listening,
Yes.
it means if the person is not listening, then you are not communicating.
Well, so I suppose sometimes it's also a matter of the purposes of the communication. Because yes, communication requires a message, a receipt of the message, and then in some ways a response. Sometimes it depends on the purpose for you communicating, the purpose for the person listening. You know, those two things make a difference in whether or not the communication will, one, be received at all or even received the way you intended to be received. So it's both ways, right? You've got to have a give and a take. But it's not necessarily a take in the same way that you give.
Okay.
Right? The person responding to you may respond in ways that are not the same as what you have given out. It's still communication. So even if they don't respond, whether verbally or non-verbally, that in itself is a response.
Okay.
So it is still communication.
Is there anything like a perfect communication?
I don't know. The word perfect is difficult, isn't it? Because it's very relative. What may be considered perfection to one person is nothing to another person. So I don't know how we would use the description as perfect communication, but maybe it's more about purposeful, whether I achieved the purpose for which you were speaking or engaging and what you received back. So maybe it's purposeful. If it achieved what you needed it to achieve, then you've communicated.
Okay.
But it should also then sort of roll into something else, isn't
Yeah.
it? Either further communication or action or a resolution or something like that, then you've achieved your purpose for which you're communicating.
So why is it that sometimes you realize you are trying to communicate, right? And there's somebody is not responding. The person is not responding, and you ask, "Oh, what is the problem?"
Yeah.
And the person says nothing. But you can see that something is not going well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Why do we always say nothing? Let's say in instances where we're even hurting,
Yeah.
right? You ask us, I can see there's something not going
Yeah.
well. And I ask you and you say nothing.
Yeah.
Why? What happens?
I think there's no one answer to that. There are different reasons or different possibilities. First of all, it has to do with, like I said, the intention of the communication. Sometimes you're trying to say something to someone. The person is not either interested or not in a space or a frame of mind where they are ready to listen or to hear you. So you'll be putting out your all, trying everything you can, but it doesn't land the way you need it to, or sometimes it doesn't land at all. So because it's a two-way thing, if the person's readiness or their willingness is not where it needs to be, then it can feel as though the communication has hit a wall. And so when they are not ready, they may say things like, there's nothing. And in a way, it is a cover, isn't it? Maybe they are not able to verbalize why they are ready to listen. Maybe they are simply not interested in hearing you. Sometimes we weaponize that. We will say anything because we know it will hurt the other person. We know they have put in all this effort. We don't want to meet that effort. Sometimes people will say nothing in a sort of passive-aggressive way. When you know that nothing is there's nothing, they are saying it in a way for you to realize that it's not just nothing, but I'm not going to talk about it. And then you keep wondering or you keep trying sometimes. So there are different reasons. It's got to be about the person being open to hearing you, open to dialogue or to communication, but also you're being able to recognize sometimes that it's beyond the person's capabilities, what you're asking for. So they feel uncomfortable, they feel as though every time they are disappointing you, so why am I still engaging? You know, it's those kinds of things. So really the base of this is the kind of interaction that we have with the person. We have to know our audience in that sense, whether it's one person or whether it's a group. We have to know what it is that they respond to, what they need at different times, and then feed off of that.
But with all this, how do I become a better listener? Because here's the case, there's somebody I'm trying to communicate with, and the person is not forthcoming. So sometimes in practice, you realize that you just need to sit and listen. How do I become a better listener?
It's again about knowing your audience, right? You pick up a lot when you just sit back and listen. Sometimes we get too comfortable hearing our own voices because we know it. We live in what we know, the expertise we have, or the knowledge or whatever it is. Sometimes you hear a lot more, or you understand a lot more when you just listen, or you sit back and observe. People will say one thing but behave in another way. When you watch, you can see those discrepancies happening sometimes. So then you can use that to then sort of correct how you're engaging with the people if that's what is needed. Sometimes people just want you to listen. You know, we are too often used to, let me provide a solution. You should have done this, you should have done that, you could have gone here, could have gone there. Maybe they thought about all of those things. Sometimes they just want you to listen. Sometimes they just want you to hear that I just need to vent, or I need to just let it out, find an outlet for what I'm feeling. And so it's not about you finding solutions. It's more about you hearing me and what I'm saying to you. And eventually, if it is help the person asks, eventually they may come to the way they say, so what do you think I should do? And then with all you've listened to and heard, then you can bring any suggestions that you have. But a lot of the time, once people are talking, they'll be like, you should have done it like this, you should have gone here, you should have said this. And all of that, before they even land, we are answering. So you be a better listener when you choose to want to let the person finish. Let me understand the entirety of your thought process, what you have in mind, and then I will respond. then you can
Yeah.
listen better.
So even in the midst of communicating and all that, families, for example, how best do we communicate in our families, even amongst parents, amongst siblings, amongst parents, siblings, parents, children?
Yeah.
How do we tend to communicate? Because sometimes even those who are close are not able to open up to each other.
Yeah.
So for issues concerning emotional safety, for example,
Yeah.
how does this communication come to play?
Yeah. You see, the thing is, most often we pick cues from what people do as much as we listen to what they say. And so in families, you have to cultivate that culture. It won't happen automatically. And it's not just families, in relationships or marriages, in friendships, with work colleagues, whatever it is, it's got to be cultivated. Otherwise, what will generate organically may not be what you need it to be. Children especially pick up these things from what parents don't say as much as from what they say. You know, so they watch how you talk to your siblings, and that can inform how they talk to their siblings, how your children talk to each other, or they watch how you talk to each other's parents. You know, sometimes we have parents who treat their kids really nicely. Everything the children want, they get, or within reason. But you've got good rapport with their children. They listen, they engage, and all of that. But between the parents, it's horrible. Right?
Yeah.
And there are very high possibilities that those children will then take that kind of lesson into their own relationships. And you'll think, oh, but you had a father figure, had a mother figure. Why are you then going with somebody who is this toxic or you know, dysfunctional? It's also the things they pick up from there. So in the home, it's not something that will happen on its own. We've got to be conscious to cultivate those relationships, and cultivating those relationships includes how you talk about things. Whether it's joyful or sad, whether it's disciplinary or not, communication doesn't always have to be pleasant. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you have to talk to somebody about nasty things or unpleasant things that they have done and so on. So how does that play out? You know, that's what we learn. And it doesn't mean that once you have that, then that's it. It's something that you constantly have to groom. You've got to grow, you have to learn, you have to fix. You've got, you know, it's a growing process. It's a continuing process. And so we have to cultivate it.
So just in the process of opening up, you know, as families for communication and all, I think one of the things I want to find out from you is that if somebody is in pain, somebody is hurting, and the person comes, how do we communicate this?
When the person is hurting and they come to you,
Yeah, they come to you. How do you see? Like, how do you talk about it?
well, you have to first, you know, be able to listen and think of what it is that the person is trying to communicate, right? First of all, the fact that they're coming to you might suggest that they trust you, or they're hoping that you can be someone that can help them with the thing that is hurting them.
Okay, so just hold on to our thoughts, because I'm going to ask you more questions about how best we can express these feelings. Well, once we just hold on to the thoughts, we'll go on a short commercial break, and we'll be back with more about communication and then our emotional health.
With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians. With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians. With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians. With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians. With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians. With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this
master distributor of networking, telecommunications, and IT solutions across Africa and beyond. With over 32 technology partners, we deliver business solutions tailored to your strategic objectives. Our seasoned engineers work in a safe, friendly environment to support all your telecom, networking, and IT needs. From LAN and WAN to IoT and enterprise applications, we provide end-to-end managed services for telecom companies across Africa. We specialize in wireless and wired solutions, telemetry, Wi-Fi services, and video conferencing technologies. Want to elevate your tech infrastructure? Visit us today at ptechghana.com. Premium technologies, redefining system integration in Africa and beyond. We are a global master distributor of networking, telecommunications, and IT solutions across Africa and beyond. With over 32 technology partners, we deliver business solutions tailored to your strategic objectives. Our seasoned engineers work in a safe, friendly environment to support all your telecom, networking, and IT needs. From LAN and WAN to IoT and enterprise applications, we provide end-to-end managed services for telecom companies across Africa. We specialize in wireless and wired solutions, telemetry, Wi-Fi services, and video conferencing technologies. Want to elevate your tech infrastructure? Visit us today at ptechghana.com. Premium Technologies, redefining system integration in Africa and beyond. We are a global master distributor of networking, telecommunications, and IT solutions across Africa and beyond. With over 32 technology partners, we deliver business solutions tailored to your strategic objectives. Our seasoned engineers work in a safe, friendly environment to support all your telecom, networking, and IT needs. From LAN and WAN to IoT and enterprise applications, we provide end-to-end managed services for telecom companies across Africa. We specialize in wireless and wired solutions, telemetry, Wi-Fi services, and video conferencing technologies. Want to elevate your tech infrastructure? Visit us today at ptechghana.com. Premium Technologies, redefining system integration in Africa and beyond.
Okay, so viewers, welcome back to Let's Talk About. And I'd like to remind you viewers that we are live on our social media platform, YouTube page for Trinity United Church Legon. You can send your questions and comments on our social media platforms or to our WhatsApp number 0501579996. The WhatsApp number is 0501579996. So today's conversation has been about communication, connection, and emotional health. And we've been talking about what communication is all about, and what are some of the key things to take into consideration as a listener, for example. Then we related it to the family, right? In the circles of the family, there is a lot of communication that goes on between siblings, among siblings, between parents, and then parents and children and all that. Now we go to the point where we're talking about the fact that when somebody is in pain and the person comes to express themselves, the person is hurting, do we have to ignore it, or how does the person even communicate?
Okay.
Do we have specific ways in which probably we could pick up certain signals?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a few things that you've talked about, right? One, being receptive when someone is sharing their pain, and two is also being able to open up and communicate what you're feeling or what you're struggling with. And those two things often need to work together. For someone to come to you, it suggests that they hope, or they know that they can trust you, or they are hoping to find a safe space in you. They are hoping that they can share what they are struggling with to someone who would listen. And most of the time we are hoping someone who would listen without judgment, right? Or even if it is judgment, it's sort of appropriate kind of judgment. I talk about that sometimes, that it needs to be an appropriate, loving kind of judgment, which is meant not to deride the person or to make them feel inadequate, but to help correct what has gone wrong. So often this is the thing that the person who is experiencing the hurt, even subconsciously, may have the expectations they may have. So it's really about being in a space where they can trust your word, or they can trust your presence, actually, to believe that you will be someone who will open up your heart to hear them, you know, to hear that, because it takes a lot of courage for someone to say, this is hurtful, or this is what I'm struggling with, or this is why I'm unhappy. And so it takes a lot of courage. And so if your response is to dismiss them, or sometimes we ridicule them, or, you know, we belittle what they are struggling with, like, is that all? Is that all? Is this why you are crying? Is this what the issue is? People have worse problems than this. I mean, that doesn't help anything. Doesn't change the fact that the person is feeling this way, you know. And whether you think it is trivial or you think it's something small, is not the point. It's not about you at that point. Not you, the listener. It's the person who is struggling. You may be able to solve that issue just like that, but they are not able to. Perhaps they've tried, it didn't work, or perhaps they're feeling discouraged or uncomfortable or whatever. So it's about acknowledging that you know, I hear you. This is something you're struggling with. This is okay. Let's see what we can do about it. Let's see how we can figure it out. You know, you're still human. You're still worthy. You're still someone I respect and love and enjoy being with. If you're struggling with this thing, well, let's try and figure it out. You've got to help the person to feel like you have to show some compassion. You have to show some positive regard, right? As psychologists, we always talk about unconditional positive regard. No matter what the person is sharing with you, how horrible it might seem to you, you still see them as a person who is worthy of love and encouragement and support and all of this. That has to come through. And the thing is, if you are someone who has maybe ridiculed other people, or you've said dismissive things, and the person has heard it, and then to them you come and say, oh, I'm here for you, I'm here to listen. It doesn't pitch, like the person can see through it. We sometimes underestimate the extent to which genuineness can be picked up by people. You know, you may not have to say anything, but when you are fake or you are not genuine, eventually people figure it out. So it will shine through, it will show through when they're coming to you. If they come to, sometimes they feel like there's nobody else that they can talk to. You are the only one they've got to come to. So if you put up that reaction, then either they'll recoil, or they'll lash out, or they will rebel in some other way, or some of them will just, you know, they'll take drastic measures on their own. It's all sorts of things. So we have to be receptive in as much as people learn how to express what they're going through that they need help with.
That's great. And then it draws to the next set of questions about, we have conflicts. There's anger, there's frustration. I have my frustration from work.
Yeah.
I bring it to the house. I have the ones I have from the house.
Yes.
I take it to the workplace. Or I have ones that I need to solve within the family, right?
Yeah.
And we have all these frustrations. How do we manage to communicate, even in the midst of these frustrations, so that we don't lodge over people who do not even understand? We are not communicating. I
Yeah.
don't know what you're going through.
Yeah.
And all I do is to just pounce on you with all my anger and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
How do we identify some of these things ourselves, and how do we manage
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's really important. So I mean, what you describe is what we would usually call or term displacement,
Yes.
right? There's something or someone that has upset you somewhere else. You can't pour out those frustrations on that person or that thing. Or sometimes you have to a certain extent, but if not, it's not finished. It's still bubbling there, and then you go home or you go wherever, and then you go and you pounce on it. And it works both ways. Sometimes we talk about your boss has annoyed you, so then you go home and you are nasty to your spouse. But sometimes it's the other way around. Your spouse has upset you, and then you go home, and then your employees are the ones that struggle, you know. So it depends on the situation. The person who is less or non-threatening to you is the one who ends up being the recipient of all of that frustration or anger. I think it's a human, or it's a human reaction, but we've got to control it. You know, our emotions are such that we have to recognize them first, and then we control them. So if it is something that happens, maybe you've not noticed that you do that. You always have to have people around you who can draw your attention to those things. That's key. No matter who you are, you should have some trusted people who can draw attention to things that go wrong, or the things that you do that are problematic. When you do have that and it is pointed out to you, you have to then assess when that happens and why. You have to think about the situations that trigger these kinds of things. What do you do and why? How often do you do it? What are the things that, you know, should be trigger points for you to behave in those ways? And then that awareness should then make you conscious enough to stop when you see yourself doing it. And eventually becomes a sort of habit, right? You constantly have to be thinking, what am I feeling, what am I thinking, before you respond. It's such an important difference between reacting and responding, right? We say that all the time. Reaction is something happens, you respond, you react immediately. But a response is careful, it's considered. It's something you think about, you consider what it means before you even react, whether it's verbally or non-verbally, before you respond. So once you start to pay attention to your emotions, it starts to become second nature for you to pause and assess, how am I reacting, or how do I wish to respond to this situation before you let it out. And that's the kind of thing that you can use to try and modify frustrations being displaced onto other people. But then there's also the situation where sometimes somebody may be going through something, they're not emotionally ready to talk about it. And we keep insisting, oh, my husband or my wife or my friend, I can see there's something wrong with you. Talk to me. And the person says, I will let you know, not yet. I have to process it. You don't have to shove it down their throat. They don't have to open up when you think it's ready. I mean, when you think you are ready, you know, sometimes some people need to have the thing processed in their minds for a bit. They may want to silently sort of pray about it or think about it, or maybe even speak to a few other people before it comes to you. And we have to start to learn to respect those things. Those boundaries are important. If the person says, I'm not ready, I will let you know, or I'll speak to you when I'm able to get a grasp on it. We have to respect that. The other side of it, again, is that sometimes some people use silence as a weapon. So I'm upset with you, I won't tell you, and you ask me what the issue is, I don't know, there's nothing. And you say it, and yet you're not talking to me, you're not engaging with me, you're not, whatever, you're not eating at home or sleeping at home, or whatever it is. And you're giving the person the silent treatment. You're cold. That is weaponizing your silence. That's not healthy, right? If you really are not able to talk about it, you should be able to communicate to your partner or whoever it is that I need some space to process this, and I'll come back to it, you know. And the person needs to respect that. Yeah.
In all this, I realize that communication goes beyond just talking. You need to add some sort of empathy to it, self-awareness, mindfulness, small mindfulness, small. Everything that you do all comes together to aid in this kind of communication. Yeah. But how best can we communicate to make somebody not feel worthless? Okay. Because sometimes communication can be said that, I don't mean to make you feel that way, but you are pestering me. I don't feel like talking. How best can we try as much as possible to communicate whatever we are feeling, for people to understand that, no, you wait, we'll talk later, or this is what the issue is, so that they don't feel worthless.
Right. It's a skill that I think we need to develop, you know. It's a skill that if we start practicing early on, it's something that we can improve and adapt or adjust to. There's no such thing as somebody who gets it always right. It's absolutely not true. There's no way. If somebody says they do that, I'm very suspicious of that person. It's why it is good to also learn to apologize. Because sometimes, like you said, you don't intend to offend the person or dismiss them. But if you're actually paying attention, if you're communicating and listening actively, when you say something, you can see the reactions. You can see how it lands. And then you need to go and make amends. There's never anything wrong with going back to say, you know what, I think I misspoke, or I realized that you reacted this way when I said X, Y, or Z. I didn't mean it this way. This is what I meant. This is how I intended it. Or I was in my own head and I was insensitive. I'm really sorry. This is why this was happening. You know, there has to be a constant learning. We improve, we mature, we gain that wisdom, we do better, we correct our mistakes. It's that kind of thing. There are some people that now they feed off of each other's energies or their moods and emotions because they know each other that well, you know. So, but it didn't happen organically like that. I think that you have to cultivate it and practice it. You make mistakes, you correct them, you go back, you look at you have conversations where you say, you know, this time they didn't go well with each other. Having someone that you can be open and trusting with is so important. I always use this example that there are some people, and I think we often sort of get, it's maybe a stereotype of how the African couples are raised or are taught, where you should wake the person up at 4 a.m. If there's a serious matter to talk about, wake them up at dawn, and then you talk about the issue. And for some people, that's what works for them. So that in the heat of the day when, you know, things are busy and there are distractions, you don't want to crowd that with something heavy. So you talk when it's just, for some people that works really well. But there may be some people who don't want to have to talk when it's been like 10 hours after the incident happened. You know, when they are trying to get some sleep, you are waking them up at dawn to talk about something that they think we could have resolved there and then, you know. So the thing about communication is that people have styles of communicating, and we have to learn the people we are with, what is their style of communication.
Great.
Right? What is my style of communication, and how is it interacting with that person's style of communication? Because not everybody is the same, and you don't react or relate to everybody in the same way. The way you'll speak to your spouse must be different from the way you speak to your children and your employees or your employer, the way you speak to people who do odd jobs for you, the way you speak to the person in the shop. You know, there are different ways in which you communicate. That person's style will be reflected in all of these ways, but you've got to think about how the person you're speaking to or communicating with is bouncing back off of your own style. And sometimes you have to make adjustments. You know?
I think that the part I was going to add is, or ask, probably, our cultural perspectives. In this whole communication and connection thing with the families and workplace and all that, there are certain people who genuinely were trained in ways that communication was a certain style, and believes that this is how it's supposed to be. So they also train their children in the same line. But from what we're understanding, we need to understand each other. And with the generations that are coming up now, there are different ways of communicating the same thing. And if you don't get it right, then you are just falling apart with the kind of link. Now, okay, you may just
I was
add.
just going to say that in the important thing there is that just because it's a style doesn't mean it should be rigid. You know, there has to be compromise. It's not always about you. Often, it's not about you at all. So, yes, you've got a way of approaching things, but it doesn't have to be rigid. There has to be a bit of give from each side. So myself and you are having a conversation. You are the kind who is always talking. I'm the one who wants to take my time and make my point or whatever. And then you just keep talking and talking. So I never get the chance to talk. But then I also, maybe I'm too slow. So then if one point I want to make may take so long that the other person also can't get their views across, then it's a problem. So we've got to figure out, how do we balance this? How do you compromise a bit, slow down a bit? How do I speed up a bit if we really want this thing that we're doing together to actually have fulfill its purpose? So styles are there, which are often our default or things that we have learned how to speak or communicate. But we have to be flexible. We have to adapt.
From what you said, there's this whole generalization that, it's the ladies that are always talking, blah, 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 and then the men will just keep quiet and listen to.
And
I'm sure it's just a generality. I don't think. I mean, the two of us here, I don't think we believe that.
We don't believe that
one. Okay, now this ties us into the kind of relationships we build and the connections, right, within our family spaces, within our workplaces, the kind of connections through communication. Can people live together and yet be emotionally distant?
Oh, yes, of course. Of course. You can be in a space with somebody and not connect with them emotionally. Absolutely. There are lots of marriages like that, actually. So many relationships, friendships and so on, where it's just about the physical coexistence, but no actual emotional connection. And you can have that with friends. You'll be surprised that there are some friend groups, or there are some friends that you know, look, if I want to just have a good time, this is that person that I go to. We will go wild. We will have our fun, you know. But if I really need to talk to the person about something deep, then I have to find someone else. Sometimes there are some people who, they're okay with that. I know that this friend, this is what I get from them. So this is how I'm going to have this relationship go. But sometimes you find that even in romantic relationships or marriages where people are coexisting, they're going through the motions. We wake up together, we figure out how, get the kids ready, get to school. He drops you off or she drives away in one direction and he in another direction. You come back, repeat the cycle. They're just there. It's very possible. Very possible to coexist with someone. But you see, the thing is, a lot of the time, there's some emotions bubbling under the surface. There's a reason why it has gotten to that.
Yeah.
There may be unresolved issues. There may be feelings of hurt. There may be, things that they don't feel like they're being listened to or understood, or the other one feels the other one is nagging too much, or there's something there that is unresolved or that they haven't looked at.
Okay.
But it can be like a stalemate, right? They are in that space for years sometimes, if nothing is, especially when it doesn't result in, let's say, physical harm or losing out on something that is needed. If everything else seems to be working, there are many people who can coexist in that environment for quite a while until something blows it up or something happens and then everything just collapses.
I think that per my experience with practice and all that, you realize that there are people you talk to and you just pick right from the conversation that the core reason they needed therapy was not what they came with. So there is some sort of underlying situation which has not yet been talked about or communicated, because everybody seems, let me just mind my own business, or probably I haven't found the right way of getting this issue across. But sometimes I feel it is the two of us. If I haven't studied you and you haven't studied me, whether it's parents or workers or whatever, I wouldn't be able to communicate.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't have a choice, right? Sometimes you don't have a choice. If it's your boss, for instance, you don't have a choice. You have to find a way to communicate to the person. You may not be able to dig into why when they are so mean to you, it hurts you, and you may not be able to go into all of those things. But so what we do is we find an alternative, right? If you know this person is really rigid, then I'm just going to make sure I check all the boxes just so I don't have issues with them. And that's a form of communication, even though it's passive-aggressive sometimes. So we compromise, or we adapt to what the situations are. Sometimes people behave that way because their experience with you when they tried to be something else may not have been encouraging. So then they think, well, then I'm not going to, I mean, I can give an example of myself. There used to be a boss, this is several years ago where I worked at the time, who, when you ask questions, or when I asked a question one time, so I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Do you mean X or Y or Z? And you're like, as for you, you're always confused. Right? And this was like, I think, an internship or something when I was still a student, right? I mean, after that, I never asked anything again. Because why would I want to be embarrassed like that in front of people all the time? So as for you, you're always confused. And every day you are confused, So sometimes some people have had experiences where the response to what they tried to communicate was negative, or it was hurtful. And so they won't do it again. They won't do it again. And sometimes it's not direct. I may have seen that boss say that to somebody else. So even if I am the one who is confused, I won't say anything because in my mind, what was done to that person can be done to me. So I would rather avoid it, So the situation with people not speaking up or not figuring out how to say things, we have to look at it in both ways. How is it being communicated? How is it being said or portrayed? And how is it being received? Both have to meet at a certain point. And like I said, sometimes you get it wrong. You go back and you say, no, actually I meant it this way, or I'm sorry, I didn't pick up on this or that when you said it. Can we go back to the conversation or whatever? Yeah, it takes an intentionality. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key words, being intentional about the whole communication and building that connection. But in all of this, how do children, because I want us to bring in children, what they learn from, let's say, parents disagreements and how
Okay.
they are not able to communicate, and how this reflects in their everyday life, even in school,
Yeah.
and even amongst their siblings
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
How are we able to pick this up?
Yeah. So, like we said earlier, children will pick up what you do as often as they pick up what you say, and sometimes even more. So they will see how disagreements or conflicts are resolved between mom and dad. And that is the model that they may have. It could go one of both ways. It's either they'll use that model themselves, or they will go sort of in the opposite direction, right? So you may have, this is where they talk about if you have parents that are always fighting. You could have children who also then always fight with their spouse, but you could have children who they don't want any disagreements, because the kind of tension or the discomfort that was in the house when their parents were fighting, they felt uncomfortable. They don't want that. So that kind of person, as soon as there looks like there's going to be a conflict, they'll back off. So it could go one of either ways.
Okay.
But the thing is, for us to be able to nurture a space where it's okay, we don't want a household that is always on fire, but it's also not realistic to never have any disagreements,
Exactly.
because when you also do that, they see that as pretense.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't see parents fighting, but the next morning you can feel the tension. You can see that there's something off. And children pick up on those things. So really it's about modeling or teaching the children that when I disagree with somebody, this is a healthy way to proceed or to resolve the conflict, not to weaponize the silence or to use hurtful words or physical, aggression. Those are all unhealthy ways, and not also to pretend that it is not there. That's also unhealthy. Now, I'm not suggesting that as parents you start talking to your children about the issues that are going on with your spouse. That's also not the point. But it's them being able to see that you guys are resolving it, right? You're talking about it calmly. Even if your voices are raised, it's not, the tone on the messages are not putting the person down, If you say you're frustrating me, or I don't think you're hearing me, all those are okay. And for the other person to not say, get lost, you're always complaining,
Exactly.
But then they see those kinds of interactions. It makes a big difference in what they learn to do. And these things may play out in how they engage with their schoolmates or, down the line with workers or colleagues and things like that. We start learning those lessons from the household. So we've got to model, and again, doesn't mean you'll always get it right, but they should see you working on it, They should see you trying to make it better, trying to do better. To say, oh, I didn't do this well. Go give your dad this for me, or go give mommy this for me. And, she's upset with me, I'm trying to make amends. Let's do this or that. Like they should see you trying to do better. And that's what they'll learn. That's when you start to think of healthier ways of engaging, or communicating.
But still on the children, how do we spot some of these children who are not able to communicate, especially in the schools? For example, what are some of the attributes, what are some of the features that you watch out for? Even for parents, for example, what are some of these things that they could look out for to say that, oh, this is a child who does not communicate, but you could see the person is hurting, or there's a challenge with the person, but the person is not communicating.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself is their way of communicating.
Okay.
Them not saying anything is their way of communicating.
Wow.
And sometimes, like I said, it depends on where it's coming from, right? What is the reason for them? You can see they are hurting, they are not saying anything. That's they are communicating that I don't feel safe in expressing what is hurting me, right? Or I'm not sure whether it will land well. And they may have seen that happen with somebody else. When a sibling or even one of the parents had said, I didn't like when you did so and so, and so their reaction was vile, or it was really toxic or unhealthy. And then they won't do that the same. So they are communicating something. There's always something that they're communicating. It may not always be the way we want them to say it, or we may not always understand it until we take some time to to explore. So in school, you may have a child who is doing really well, but any criticism from the teacher, it just spoils their day. You know, they are down, they can't do anything, or maybe sometimes they're even crying, or they're picking little fights because there has been some kind of criticism, some kind of criticism from the teacher or from a friend or something. All of that is communication. And then you've got to pull in, you have to create spaces where the child feels safe. And that is not just in the moment when something has happened, but you have to cultivate that relationship with them, that it's okay to talk about certain things. I may correct you. Sometimes I may be upset with you, but it doesn't mean that you are any less worthy. I don't love you less. I don't think less of you. Sometimes I don't like what you do, and I'll say it, but then that doesn't mean that when there's a problem, I won't listen. You know, from the get-go, if the child knows this, and of course, like things like teenagers or adolescents, they always try to push the boundaries. So there's the matter of making sure we keep those boundaries. But you have to have that relationship with them beforehand so that you can start digging. What is happening? Why are you always teary? Why is it that you're picking fights? Even if they are not verbalizing it, you can dig and try and find out what the issues are.
So let's take, for example, so this is somebody who's, okay, doesn't feel like talking. Okay, so we've left the person for a while. How do we go back and reconnect? And the issue of saying sorry, does it rebuild the trust? Does it make it? So first of all, how do we go back to reconnect? Because we've left the person is not communicating, right? We said, oh, that's the way of not communicating. But we've left the person for a while. How do we go back?
Because there are some people who say, oh, no, I don't want to talk for now. And then it's so awkward, right? That nobody can talk to them, or you can't even be seen laughing because this person is moody and so on and so forth. So, sometimes that's the thing that happens. It's why the other side of it also needs to, in as much as you're saying, I need space or I need time to process this thing, you've also got to be very sort of realistic that you are not isolated, you're not living in an island. So you take a bit of time and then you come back and you say, you know, I need a distraction, or even though I'm not ready to talk about, I need a distraction. Can we do it this way or that way, or can we engage in something else, and then it will help me to process or whatever. Eventually, when you are quiet, eventually your silence, like I said, becomes a weapon, or your silence becomes another problem in the home or in the workplace or whatever. So the person may come back to you to say, okay, are you calm now? Can we talk about it now? You don't keep your moodiness and say, no, I'm not ready or whatever. Sometimes some people do that. It's not helpful to anybody, and you are holding on to the anger sometimes beyond what you need to hold on to. So we also have to learn a bit of maturity and know when to let things go, or know when to come up and talk about it. Because sometimes you say, I'm not really ready, but when they start talking, you realize actually a lot of it pours out. It just comes out, it pours out. We talk about the issue and then it's done. But you've held on to it for so long. So when you are in a connection with someone, whether it's your loved one or whether it's your colleague, there's always that point where sometimes you've got to put yourself on the back burner for a bit and engage with that person, you know. But it can't always be that way, that I'm the one who is always sort of begging you to talk or begging you to open up, and then you are always, I need my space, I need my space. It has to be reciprocal, because eventually the person is going to disconnect. If you won't talk, be there. You know, if you don't want to say it, well, we'll continue like that. And then you feel dismissed, or you feel unnoticed, you know, and then that becomes another problem. So there's always, you see, you've got to be in tune with each other. Whoever you are engaging with, you have to be in tune with the person. And that requires paying attention. You have to look at the person's reactions. You have to think about what the person would typically do, how they have reacted in the past. What have they said, even if not about this issue? What have they said they like or dislike? Or, you know, it's those things. We've got to be active about the way we engage with people. Otherwise, it will always be like, I'm surprised. I don't know where this is coming from, but it's been bubbling there. The person has been trying to let you see that this thing bothers me, or I prefer it this way or that way, and you haven't noticed. So you've got to be in tune with the person. You have to pay attention, right? This is where this thing of active listening comes in. You're actually listening, processing, and then responding, thinking about what is the meaning of what the person said. Not so the terminology is sometimes used, we call it combative listening.
Okay.
Right? Or I had a professor who used to say, you are listening with your mouth full of words already. The person is talking, they haven't even landed, and you are answering.
You
You
have
know
all the
what you
answers.
want to say already. You haven't actually listened to them, you know.
Okay.
So that's not active listening, but you've got to be active in the way you listen and engage with people. Otherwise, it will always be superficial. There are some people who have no deep connections with anybody, because everything is superficial, and that's
Yeah.
problematic. Eventually, it bites you in the face.
And
Yeah.
it's always saying sorry enough.
I don't think so. Eventually, the story doesn't mean anything anymore. It becomes superficial, right? It becomes, it has no weight.
Yeah.
Because there are some people who are really quick to say it, but it doesn't change their behavior. Sorry is not just the words, it's also how your actions show that you are contrite. You know, it's how you engage after you've done the wrong and apologized for it. It has to show somehow. I'm not saying you have to tiptoe around the person all the time, but if you spoke to me in a certain way and you saw it hurt me and you came and you said sorry, I'm not expecting that you'll do it again and again and again. If the very next time you do the very same thing, then clearly the sorry didn't mean anything. But somebody may come again and say sorry, and then you may give them another chance. But if it is always, okay, I'm giving you another chance, and then the sorry comes again, and then the sorry is just a word. It's not, there's no weight behind it. So the answer is not always to apologize. Sometimes it's necessary, but the next thing should be after the sorry, then what? You know, and that's
Yeah.
what makes the difference.
Yeah. So then if after the sorry, and there's always issues about how we communicate, and I want to reopen a conversation, is it good to just come and say, can we talk? Is it enough, or it spells out the whole fact that, hey, here comes trouble, or I don't feel like talking, or you just put that blockade and say, I don't want to talk.
Yeah.
The statement, can we talk? Because it means a lot.
It does. It does. I don't think there's, again, not one answer. It depends on the context or the circumstances. Sometimes when you say, can we talk to somebody, they're ready to listen because it's something that maybe you don't say very often, or when you do use it, it's something that they know you are ready to, you know, to open up or to dig into the issues. For some people, when they say, can we talk, then you know that they're just coming to blame you. They're just coming to say, and last time you did this, and last time you did that, and when I said this, you said that, and, you know. So when you say, can we talk, the person is already dreading it, or they've shut their minds already to it. So really it depends on the circumstances, and it also depends on how you use it. So we have to be, what's the word? Sort of strategic, if I should say. Yes, that intentionality about how we use our talking. There are people who, you know, they would make such a fuss, you know, I really need to talk to you, you've hurt me so bad, and so on. And then you're like, oh my God, what did I do? And then you come and you talk, and the person is like, yeah, the last time I was trying to talk to you and you ignored me. And you maybe don't even remember that you did that, or you don't remember that they were trying to do all of that. It is important that you acknowledge that I didn't do it intentionally. I didn't realize it, right? The person should then not also be on the other side saying, never, you promised me that you'll be there for me, and you are not there. So you know what I mean? So the can we talk can be useful, but it needs to be used with wisdom, I think, or with some maturity, so that it's not just about pointing blame, not just about having the space to then pour out everything that you think is wrong and so on. It can be very useful for the person to see that, okay, actually, this person really wants us to dig into things. They want us to unearth the issues and try and resolve them. And so it can be important or useful for that, but we have to use it properly.
So in the midst of us communicating, we've learned how to spot out the various ways in which to communicate, what are the things that when the person doesn't want to communicate, how we get back and all that. When the person is being completely honest, how does it come to hit? Because sometimes the person is being honest, but it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah.
And it's all in the way the person communicates.
Yeah.
How do we handle this?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, it's a very important question again, because it doesn't always feel nice for somebody to hold a mirror to our faces, for us to see what it is that they see when they look at us. It's not nice. It's not always nice. But this is where being mature and applying wisdom is so important. If someone is telling you that these things that you do, I dislike, or they make me feel this way or that way, you have to accept that this is the way they process it. That's their perception. They may be wrong in terms of your intention or your purpose for some of the things they are accusing you of, but that's their perception. This is the way they are interpreting the engagements they've had with you. And you take it in good faith, right? Sometimes it would mean I see what we are to each other now. It means I can't communicate with you. I need some distance from you, that kind of thing. For some people, it may end up being the thing that makes them walk away, you know, when it feels as though the person is being unreasonable or unfair. But when somebody is speaking to you in love or trying to help you to correct something that you do that is problematic, we have to have the grace and the maturity to say, I hear you, I'll do better.
Okay.
I didn't realize it, so I'm going to look at this or that. I'll think about it. I will pray on it. Is those kinds of things. We have, because we are not perfect, right? We're not perfect. We may be going about, and everybody is always praising us, right? But there may be that one person that you rub the wrong way.
Okay.
It's still something that you should be open to hearing, and if you can correct, you correct. But again, sometimes there are people who are just trying to be hurtful. They're just trying to poke holes at you or to criticize everything you do and so on. And so sometimes it is okay to respond. Again, remember, not react, but respond to say, I disagree with you, and I find what you say hurtful. Or sometimes to say, maybe we can't see eye to eye on this matter, so let's agree to disagree.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to find ways to be able to say those kinds of things. In our culture, it's difficult, especially when it's an older person or a boss or somebody like that. Sometimes it's difficult, but I think it's something that is worth practicing. You can be direct with somebody without being disrespectful or without being unpleasant. There are ways for you to talk to somebody who is older or who is in a position of authority over you without being disrespectful. And sometimes they push you to the extent that you have to speak up for yourself. So we have to practice these things. It's not something, nobody, as far as I know, is born knowing this. We have to practice it. So.
Yeah, okay. So probably in wrapping up our final comments now, everybody needs to take something home, right? What is that one thing that we would, a person would have to change in the way we speak?
Okay.
We'll look at various things, but in the way we speak, what is that one thing we need to change?
For me, I would say it's not necessarily how you say it, but it's not necessarily what you say, but how you say it. For me, that's the thing.
Okay.
And so what I would often recommend is that when you're talking to someone, look at them. Look at how they are reacting. Look at how they are engaging with you. Just be present. These days, we are too much on our phones and our devices,
Exactly.
you know. It is a sore point for me, a very sore point when I'm talking to someone and the person is scrolling on their phone. I find it so offensive. I find it very disrespectful. It's okay. Sometimes something is coming up whilst you're talking. So tell me, like, oh, just a second. I need to look at this, or I need to, or look, I'm looking at my phone, but I'm still listening to you.
Okay.
Case closed. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But as you're talking, if you start to pay attention, you can actually see moments when you're talking to someone when they switch off. You see it in their eyes.
Yeah.
You see it on their faces.
Yeah.
You can see moments where the person switches off and they're no longer actually paying attention to you. And so that's the thing. We have to be in tune with it. We need to look at those kinds of things. And then that can guide the way the rest of the conversation will go.
I think I was going to ask the other one as the one thing that will have to change about the way a person listens.
Yes.
But you've talked about being in tune and being attentive.
Yes.
One thing we need to change about how we apologize.
Ooh. How we apologize. I think maybe it's you know, putting aside, usually apologies are two ways, or well, maybe three, but one, it's either is grudging, like, oh, okay, you fine, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, right? Sometimes it's grudging. Sometimes the person is like just so broken or so low that they are literally like at your feet, or they
Yeah.
are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you end up feeling sorry for them, even though they hurt you, you know. I don't think that's also quite appropriate. Sometimes people may take advantage of that
Yeah.
because they know it can be manipulative. It's not always, but it can be manipulative. So I think what we need to change in how we apologize is to be sort of specific and direct, and I accept that the apology doesn't, it may not land. The person may not take my apology, but my role is to say, I'm sorry for what I've done, or I will try and do better, or whatever. It's not the person's responsibility to accept your apology. It's your responsibility to give it. So if you approach it with the idea that, yeah, I'm just going to do my part. I did this, I shouldn't have done this. Maybe you have a reason why you did it, but I'm sorry and I will do better. Finished.
One thing we need to change about disagreement when it comes to communication.
Okay.
One thing.
Disagreement. I don't think that it's wrong to have disagreements. I think we need to remove that from our minds or our perceptions, that when you have any kind of relationship with someone, whether it's a marriage or a romantic relationship, or whether it's parenting or whatever, that everything always needs to be smooth and rosy. That's a fallacy. It's almost never the case. So how you spew out what you are thinking when there's a disagreement, it says a lot about you, and it says a lot about how you think about the person. So for me, one thing that we should change is when you're upset, measure your words. Think about what you're going to say before you say it, and how you say it before it comes out of your mouth, because there are some things you say that you can't really take back. It creates all sorts of problems. So yeah, disagreements will come. They're a part of life. They can make it interesting if there's healthy sort of debate or back and forth about it. But you have to also be careful that it doesn't actually cause an explosion in something that can be actually quite nice.
So this is great. We have understood this whole issue about communication. There are so many facets to it. We have understood the connections and how they affect us, and how our emotions and our mental health comes to play. What are your wrapping message to our audience?
Well, I think what I can say is that, you know, the whole art of communication, it doesn't need to be something sort of fancy or exotic. We communicate every day in so many ways, but we have to be intentional about it. No matter who it is we are communicating, we have to take the time to practice, to reflect, to make it a habit to consider our words and our actions before we proceed. And that can make a big difference in how we end up engaging with people. So for me, that would be my closing message. Be intentional. Communication is both verbal and non-verbal. People are watching. They see your reactions. They see your engagements with other people. They see the things you say and the things you don't say, or the ways in which, you know, sometimes you have people who, they'll smile at you, and then when you pass, they're like, You know, other people see it. People see it. And so then you wonder, do they do that when I leave as well? You know, so we have to be intentional about being genuine about our communication. It doesn't help anybody when you're fake. So that's my message. Be intentional.
Be intentional. So it's been a very interesting period in understanding and learning about communication, and how this has an impact on us and our relationships as well. So from what I understand, it's not a matter of the perfect communication, but the goal is the intentionality to it, and adding some sort of compassion, empathy, and then that supportive way in communicating, so that everybody is at peace with one another, and we are not like on each other's, necks when it comes to communicating.
And it's always the importance of compromise. You give a little, you take a little. It's got to be that way.
Compromise.
Yeah.
So all too soon, we have come to the end of today's discussion. We've been talking about communication, connection, and emotional health. I was joined here by my able Dr. Lily Pobi, and I was your host, Dr. Annie Owusua Nkuleno. Thank you for tuning in today. Have a good night, and we'll come your way sometime next week. Goodbye.